Hello.
Could you please tell us about your EED-supported initiative? What are you doing, and an introduction about your main work?
Well, I'm an editor and co-founder of European Pravda, online media in Ukraine that is focused on the European Union. Actually, we are the first and currently the only media that is focusing on European issues, and that brings us, I would say, success, because this issue is on the top of the agenda in Ukraine currently. It's more or less easy to understand why, and we are producing news 24/7, let's say, news coverage on European issues, European reforms, EU integrations, NATO, and EU visibility in Ukraine as well. And we produce stories and analytics on that issue.
And how did you discover the European Endowment for Democracy, or how did the European Endowment for Democracy discover you?
Actually, that was by chance, and I guess that most of your applicants go that way by chance. I suppose so. That was at the moment when the newspaper where I used to work has collapsed due to Ukraine-Russia conflict. That was a Russian newspaper of Russian origin, Kommersant, and when it collapsed, I just wondered what should I work over further. And as far as I used to work on the European issue, I was a correspondent who was responsible for the EU. The main idea was to continue that work, because actually Kommersant was probably not the only, but one of a few papers that covered that on a daily basis. And in a few hours after that news on Kommersant closure appeared, I got an invitation from EU delegation to Ukraine. They came to me with the idea, maybe I could consider of creating something similar to what I did before. And it was like, really, it could work. And in a day, I was in the delegation with a colleague of mine who worked on that issue as well. We expressed our ideas, and they proposed us to apply to the endowment. So that's how it worked further. Of course, it did not work as fast as we were hoping to. It took, I would say, about 2 months. But anyway, it's much faster than I could get support from any other donor.
And the last big question, how would you define democracy yourself? What does it mean for you? And how do you feel that your project, your newspaper, your web news site is contributing to that?
Well, it's not so obvious for people in the EU, but for me it's absolutely obvious that at least in Ukraine, and I guess in other countries in my region, in Eastern Europe, democracy is equal to the EU, because we, especially in Ukraine, we have two different approaches or two different vectors of development. We have the Western vector that is a democratic vector of development, and we have the Eastern vector, I mean pro-Russian one, that comes in opposite way to the democracy, at least currently. And I hope that it will change, and our Eastern neighbor would be democratic country as well. But currently we are at this stage. And now, for me, European development is the same as democratic development. That's why it's so important to support EU information in Ukraine, EU activities in Ukraine, and EU reforms in Ukraine. Again, if you are coming to the issue of democratic development of Ukraine, we have to go with reforms. Which reforms? European reforms, of course. Those reforms that are supported by the EU, by Council of Europe, and by the way, we cover Council of Europe activity as well, because it is so important in terms of democratic development of Ukraine. That's why this vector is very important for us. So European vector for Ukraine means democratic vector.
Thank you very much.